From one Brazilian who could well join Arsenal to another who may not, it appears. Vinicius Junior. This one's on the back of the Sun, no bin, no fee. All smiles as he returned to Real Madrid ahead of crunch talks over his future. So where are we at with this one, do you feel, Sam?
Well, it's an interesting one. Arsenal's position is that if Vinicius does not want to sign a new contract, and if Real Madrid are not willing to let him go into the final year of his deal, which does expire at the end of next season, then they would be willing to make an attempt to sign him. And that's obviously a lot of ifs, and there's a long way to go on this, but Arsenal's position is that they, across the board within the club, feel that they could do it in that scenario. That's obviously in itself very interesting, because this is a sort of deal that financially goes way beyond anything that Arsenal have done before in their past. And people might point at Declan Rice, for example, but I think the numbers that we would be talking about here for Vinicius Junior, certainly in terms of wages, are astronomical compared to Declan Rice. And according to the latest reports in Spain, Vinicius has effectively turned down a contract which would in England be worth around £550,000 a week. Arsenal's current highest earner is Bukayo Saka on close to £300,000 a week. So you're almost doubling the highest earner and completely shattering the wage structure. It's not the sort of deal that Arsenal have done in the past. It's not the sort of deal they have done under Mikel Arteta in this sort of revolutionary process that he's overseen over the past 6-7 years. But perhaps they feel they're now in a position as Premier League champions. Perhaps they feel they can get enough sales in, enough money generated through departures to really make this happen. But as I say, it's a big departure, and there are so many ifs and maybes behind this deal that I think it's so definitely too early to call.
OK. Martin, I just wonder, for context, when I think about, the Premier League as a whole and the players that have been signed over the season, the big transfers, but, actually signing this level of superstar by any club has been very, very difficult, hasn't it? Would you say that the Premier League more like makes superstars rather than sort of recruits them from abroad? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's an argument for saying it does that, because I just think the way it is, most clubs have this sort of structure that they don't want to disrupt too much. So, as you say, if he's being paid 550,000, that would be, certainly in terms of Arsenal, that would just put him out of a different stratosphere to all the other players, and there's a risk there, of what does that create problems in its own right. So, I think you're right there, David. It would be a departure to bring in somebody like that, especially at the height of his career as he is now. So I think that will be something Arsenal will have to weigh up and calculate, the benefits against the negatives.
Why Real Madrid could face the biggest decision of their modern era. Now, while Arsenal supporters are understandably excited by the possibility of Vinicius Junior becoming available, there is another side to this story, and that side belongs to Real Madrid. Because make no mistake, this is not a club that wants to lose one of the best players in world football. If anything, Real Madrid have spent years building their future around Vinicius. He arrived as a teenager from Brazil, carrying enormous expectations. At first, there were doubts. Some questioned his finishing. Others wondered if he could cope with the pressure of playing for the biggest club in world football. But Vinicius answered every criticism the only way elite footballers can: on the pitch. Season after season, he improved. His decision-making became sharper. His finishing became more clinical. His confidence grew. And before long, he wasn't simply a talented young winger anymore. He had become one of the world's most feared attackers. The player defenders hate facing. The player capable of deciding Champions League knockout matches with a single moment of brilliance. That is exactly why this contract situation has become such a huge issue inside Madrid. Because replacing Vinicius Junior isn't something money alone can solve. Real Madrid's new era has changed everything. One of the biggest reasons negotiations have become complicated is the evolution of Real Madrid's squad itself. Over the last few seasons, the club has invested heavily in the next generation. Young superstars, world-class talent, players expected to dominate European football for the next decade. Every major arrival changes the financial structure. Every elite signing changes the wage hierarchy. Every new contract creates fresh negotiations elsewhere inside the dressing room. And suddenly, balancing everyone's expectations becomes incredibly difficult. Vinicius naturally believes he deserves to be rewarded as one of the club's most important players. From his perspective, he has already delivered Champions League titles, league titles, big game performances, goals, assists, leadership. He has proven his value, but from Real Madrid's perspective, they must also protect the long-term financial health of the club. That balancing act is exactly why these negotiations have taken longer than many expected. Why Arsenal believe timing is everything. If you have followed Andrea Berta's work throughout his career, you'll know one thing immediately. He understands timing. Elite transfers rarely happen because a club simply decides to spend money. They happen because circumstances suddenly change. A contract dispute, a player wanting a new challenge, a club needing to balance finances, a manager changing plans. Those moments create opportunities. And according to the reports currently circulating, Arsenal are making sure they understand every development surrounding Vinicius. Not because they expect Real Madrid to suddenly place him on the transfer list tomorrow, but because if the situation deteriorates, they want to be among the first clubs ready to move. That preparation is absolutely crucial, because when world-class players become available, negotiations don't last for months. They move incredibly quickly.